Hall series, and we're going to be going across the Isle of Man, visiting what are the hubs of the community over the next few months. And if you have a village hall that you think we should be visiting, then do get in touch and let us know.
And we are joined now by 3 more ladies. So we've got Shirley Taylor here first. Shirley, you're someone who, you came to Sunday school here, is that right?
Yes, I did, a long time ago.
So this has been sort of part of your upbringing, really, I guess?
Yes, part of it, yes. Came here all our lives, yeah.
And we were talking off air before about the sort of different changes and things here. And you were saying you remember a time when you had to sort of carry pails of water over from the chapel.
Yes, when the ladies used to make the tea down in the chapel for the Eisteddfod, us as kids, we used to have to bring our buckets and go and get some water from across the road at Phoebe's. Bring it back, wash the dishes, make the tea.
Oh, I love it. It's fantastic. And we're also joined by Barbara Hislop here. And Barbara, you've got some fantastic memories, and I'm sure some of the memorabilia that's been brought here, we've got the photos and we've got the treasury books and we've got the sort of minutes from meetings and photographs and press. It must spark some fantastic memories for you.
It has. I must admit there are a lot of photographs that I can't necessarily put a name to, and then there's something, oh yes, it's so-and-so. Yes, I think I was 2 years old when this was first opened, which is a terrible thought. Yes, I think really basically what I remember is being down at the chapel after when the Eisteddfod, after the hymn raising had gone, we all had to move down to the ladies moved down to the chapel, and we started on the supper. So eventually a crowd of people would come, and then they would have a good feed, come back up here, and then about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, they'd be back down for another meal. That's my real memories of it.
And we're going to have a clip just a little bit later on with a lady called Florence Convig talking about her memories of very early days of the Eisteddfod there. But everyone I've told about the fact we were coming here today in advance of the Braaid Eisteddfod, all of them have said with a sort of twinkle in their eye that if you go into the Eisteddfod you have to be prepared for a late night.
You need to bring your cushion with you, yes, certainly. You wouldn't be short of food if you're prepared to walk down to the chapel. That was the main thing.
So what makes for a really good supper?
I think all the homemade cakes. You'd have barnig for a start, sandwiches, lots of sandwiches, different cakes, cups of tea by the gallon, well, more than a gallon, by the keg full of tea, which was very welcome, I think, to a lot of people. Yes.
And speaking of cakes, we should say, when we were first introduced to Shirley, she was described as the best cake maker in the world. And I'm going to be honest, I have sampled one of her cakes, and I think it's true.
What's your secret, Shirley?
I have no secrets.
Oh, I bet she does.
Yeah.
I bet she does. I should say I remember Shirley because Shirley was at Arbury Primary School when I was there, and very much involved in the kitchens and things. So I can see where her training came from now. It's fantastic.
And interesting, all the talk of tea, Dot, because you're not allowed any alcohol in here.
No. Well, no, that's not strictly true.
She says hiding a hip flask.
No, if you have a do here, because of course it's open for people to have do's, and I went to a wonderful 40th wedding anniversary in here, and they'd got, what's the name in from Peel, 3 marquees, and she'd done all the in like blancmange things, and it was wonderful. So you can really do it up, so you are allowed alcohol, but it's you're not allowed to. We're not allowed to sell it. We're not Yatesies.
Yeah. We're also joined by Gwen Quayle, who's here this afternoon as well. And Gwen, what are your first memories of the Braaid Hall?
Probably from Sunday school days to start with. We used to come up here for the anniversary, and we'd sit on that stage there. There's a photograph of us over there, isn't there? When we were about 9 or 10. And and the Sunday school party, the Christmas party, when there'd be a big long table down there, and the mums would sit round the fire because it was so cold in here, but we wouldn't feel it probably as kids, would we? We'd be playing games.
Do you know, there's been some wonderful things that have happened in this hall over the years. We've heard about quite a few of them while we were getting ready for the show today, and as we said, there's some wonderful memorabilia and books and photographs that have been brought in. Many people will know, of course, that Dot Tilbury, that name is synonymous with cycling.
She's called the matriarch of cycling. I
Yes.
love that term.
In proper newspapers and everything. She's got a fabulous scrapbook here of some press from the hall, which involves cycling. This is the Youth Cycling League. What scrapbook is it? What we call it?
Well, every year we produce a scrapbook, really, of all the press cuttings, and it was Royal London in 360 in 2011, but now it's RL 360. And they still sponsor us. It's the 25th year this year. But going on from there, in 2011, of course, Mark Cavendish was sort of just, he was higher profile than anybody. And, of course, they wanted to find out where his roots were, and they were in the Isle of Man. And various people came over from America and all over the world. And on a Thursday night, we have indoor turbo sessions in this room. And
Just explain what that is.
Turbo sessions. So the bicycle is attached to a machine, and the kids cycle, and they've got a coach that keeps them fit during the winter. And anyway, this particular night, the London Times was coming up with Simon Crellin. Anyway, it was a terrible night. It was, you can imagine it blown a hoolie, and it was dark. Of course, there's no street lights up here. And Simon Crellin, they were late, and I phoned them up, where are you? Oh, we're coming. And eventually they arrived. And I'd said to the kids, I'd closed all the curtains, and so I give the nod to somebody to get the kids to cycle really hard. And this is how the London Times described that night of coming up to see the Braaid. Howling winds are buffeting a village hall on a dark and bitter night on the Isle of Man. It was a good time to stay at home, locked away from the raging tides and bleak midwinter. And then you open the door and are hit by the heat and hope of 40 whirling dervishes, bikes hitched to turbo trainers, dreams tethered to their favourite son. Every one of them wants to be Mark Cavendish, said Dot Tilbury, the matriarch, the very idea, of one of the sport's most remarkable production lines. And that's how they described, coming into this hall, and their jaws literally dropped as they just saw all these kids in this little village hall. They thought we had sort of like a Carrefour gym or something. And here they were in the Braaid Hall with the twinkly lights and everything. And it was a good moment. And we also had, is it NBC TV that's in America? The American CBS or whatever it is. And they came over. And there's a artist from the Isle of Man, photographer called Chris Killip, who's sort of like, right up at the top of photographers of the world. And he was, he's a big friend of Nigel Kermode's, and he was telling me that he sat down to watch the men's road race, because of course he's a big Cavendish fan in the London Olympics. And he said, NCB brought up this thing, and it was the Braaid Hall and all these kids on the turbo trainers. And he said it was on for about half an hour. You pay sort of millions of pounds, the very thing before the men's road race, the Olympics, and it all came from the Braaid Hall, and all the kids were getting interviewed. He said he couldn't believe it, and they focused purely on Mark Cavendish, and that was the story. So
the world-famous Braaid Hall.
The world-famous Braaid Hall.
World-famous Braaid Hall, yes, indeed.
But what's really lovely, and I think this is something we're going to find throughout this series, Christy, is that so much talk now about communities is that, they are dying away, that people aren't connecting with each other in the same way. But this here just proves that isn't happening.
Well, because, when it comes down to it, halls like this have fabulous uses for them. It's essentially the community, isn't it, Dot? I think finding ways of modernising those uses. And, for instance, bringing a load of kids in on their bikes is a brilliant way of introducing spaces like this to the young people.
And, of course, it's affordable. If you go to hire a sort of a smart place, it's not cheap, and there's VAT and Lord knows what on. But here it's sort of affordable for everyone. We have children's parties. As I said, somebody had their 25th wedding anniversary here. We have, our own bingo, etc. But and it's great for kids' parties because they can just run round and run wild. enjoy themselves.
And great acoustics for
Really,
singing
yes.
as well.
Now that's
Yeah.
something we're going to be talking about a little bit more in a moment. But we've got some trophies here,
John,
which
come over and tell us
John
about this trophy.
knows about, because that's the amazing thing here. All these bits of history have been kept, have been treasured, and really looked after. John, what have we got here?
Well, this is the top of the aisle trophy. The top of the aisle was a concert. A competition basically that the members of the Young Men's Club set up. It was based on a what was the name of it, Kenny? The one that the top of the aisle was based on? Cock of the North? Cock of the North. Yeah. Cock of the North, an event in England which they based it on. So we had a set of rules, and concert parties came along. And they competed for the cup. They had to do a concert of between 3/4 of an hour and an hour, and we had it every night for 3 or 4 nights, and it got so big we ended up in the Braaid Church Hall because we couldn't accommodate the people here. So it ran for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. The last 2 years, the Central Young Farmers Club won it, and it was basically the forerunner of the Central Young Farmers Club concert series that they do now. So it was absolutely packed. You couldn't get in here. There's people we've got pictures literally of people hanging through the windows to see what was going on. It was so popular, and it was a great thing. We still have the trophy, but we don't have the competition anymore, I'm afraid.
Oh, it's a wonderful trophy, though. Top of the aisle contest.
Top of the aisle.
Contest,
Yeah.
the perpetual
Yeah.
cup. Still says Young Men's Club on it, though.
Well, that's okay. We are live from the Braaid Hall this afternoon in the first of our Village Hall series. We're going to be finding out about something very exciting that is happening here in the next 24 hours. We'll be back in just a moment.